Hi, Jim here. This is a process that I'm very fond of. Okay, there was a video I made a few days ago, talked about taking certain supplements. I left one out, a psyllium husk every day, 1 teaspoon, does the body good. It actually helps boost the most beneficial microbes in our gut, the ones that the kind of microbes that makes us feel like really good, much better than heroin. Once we get that healthy microgut biome, psyllium husk. Okay, so today is about fermenting. So what I have here is I have a jar of green beans I picked a few days ago. They are well on their way. Now I was using initially one of these pump. It takes out the air. But I didn't trust it. Something about my instinct says, just go with old school on this. So yeah, so I went ahead and went old school because how many people have this silly thing, right? Old school works just fine. And so what I got here is food grade plastic. You can get this in rolls and sheets. And so what I did is I just took a jar and I had a roll of this and circled it, and then I cut them out. And so instead of getting a rock with a smiley face on it or some other thing you got to buy, or right, I just cut out a bunch of these things. What I do is you can see them inside here. I can push down and then burp it, and it keeps all that food, everything below the brine. Don't have to worry about that mildew. We got to make sure it's food grade though. You want something that does not dissolve. It's tight polymers. And so there you go. I just happen to have rolls and rolls of that. I use for my garden bordering. Works just fine. Lasts forever. And so another thing would be, now it's recommended that you use sea salt or Himalayan salt. I've never had a problem with table iodine salt, just basic salt. It always worked just fine. So if you don't have Himalayan, you don't have sea salt, your table salt will work just fine. But I did notice that the fermentation process started very quickly on my green beans. Within about 24 hours, it was leaking onto the tray. It was building up the carbon, CO2, and I was getting liquid on my drip tray. I just use cheap little things. I have hundreds of these containers I use, store my flash frozen food in. Yeah, does a great job. And so I also, yesterday I did some zucchinis. So what I did is I just took the zucchinis and cut them in strips like a pickle, kind of size, kind of close. And I just used dill, just right from the spice rack. Just threw some dill in the bottom. I packed all my ingredients in there. So, for example, my zucchini, packed them in there as tight as I can get them. And then I filled it full with the pre-made brine in another jar, room temperature. And then I took my plastic. They're firm, but they're not like, you can move them, so you can get it in around, get it into the jar, and then get it positioned down to cover all that food, because you don't want anything to get exposed with the air, because you can get that mildew, that mold, right? You got to keep that. You got to keep all that food. You got to keep everything well below the brine, right? And these things will do that. Now you can purchase some things like that online or at the store. They're actually designed to do what these do. But I already had something. I said, oh, well, what do I got? I can make that. That's what I do. That's how I function, right? I make do with what I got. I just repurpose things. And so I'm going to be doing that with some snow peas. I had someone come over today and they picked a lot, so I So I didn't have enough to do the snow peas today, and but that's okay. Tomorrow's another day, and so that's basically the process of canning. It's really simple. So on the mixture, the salt, what I chose to do is do 1 teaspoon per cup. Now, if someone has high blood pressure or some other metabolical thing that salt interferes with them, you know, you can use 2/3 of a teaspoon, or something like that, or 3/4, or you know, you get the idea. But I went ahead and went full bore. I wanted to get that fermenting process started well, and I just wanted, because I don't have a problem with blood pressure or any metabolical problems, and I'm not on any medications, and I don't add salt to anything of any of my foods. So when I know that when I eat from these, I will be getting a higher than normal amount of salt that day, which is good because I don't usually get enough salt. So that's going to work out for me just fine. My blood pressure stays around 104 to 115 over about 75. And so, but you have to go by your own physiology, your own epidemiology. You got to decide, yeah, there's something about my blood pressure. I have a problem with that. So I need to use as little amount of salt as possible and go with that. You know, another option always is when you take something out, don't eat it straight away. Rinse off as much salt as you can. And that'll reduce the amount of salt that you get. So what I do is this time of year, because I'm going to be fermenting so many different things, is I keep some brine ready to go, generally. And I keep them in the fridge. So when these are done, so this one's moving along pretty fast. This one's, the green beans, the next day this one's going too. So I just did these yesterday, and it's already releasing carbon dioxide. So it's already bubbling out. So what you want to do is leave these just finger tight. Don't get them too tight, otherwise your jar will blow up. Bada boom! All of a sudden you're in the kitchen doing something. You hear a big bang. I used to make wine many years ago, and I'd put it in a gallon jug, one of those wine gallon jugs, and pretty heavy duty ones, and the yeast would get started again, and the pressure would build up, and all of a sudden I hear this big explosion. I'd go in where I'd keep all my wine on a rack, and there's glass everywhere. The walls are splattered. Yeah, so got to be careful with that carbon dioxide. They can go bada boom. And so there you go. It's really straightforward. So what you got? Just recap. Some salt. Table salt will do if that's all you got. Teaspoon per cup. And take your dill. You can use any spice. Rosemary, garlic. You don't have to use anything if you don't wanna. If you've got like lots of garlic, or you've got like lots of rosemary, like I got this big, huge, giant rosemary plant, right? I got rosemary up the yin yang, or was that yang yin? And so, you know, I'll be tossing a lot of rosemary in there for spice that up, and it leaves a nice flavor in there in the fermentation process. So mine will be mostly rosemary, right? And maybe a little bit of dill mixed in there, or whatever combination of spices I like. Maybe oregano, or just whatever I like, right? Yeah, spice it up any way you like. And then you got to make sure you want that. It'd probably be best off, instead of how like I have it, I just do it because I have these. Then you put it in something that something that has a higher, you know, comes up higher, that equal kind of half of the jar, in case it really starts to bubbling really quick. It can lose a lot of liquid. But when it's all done fermenting, or getting close, or you look in there and you go, oh my gosh, half the liquid's carbonated out. So that's where your backup jar comes in. Retop it off, right? Keep it topped off, because you don't want that food to be exposed to the air it's in the jar, because this lid's going to stay only finger tight, because you don't want your jar blowing up. No bada booms, right? Go in the pantry or wherever you got it stored. You know, you go in there, you go, what the heck? Those gremlins were here again. And so, no gremlins in the pantry. And so that's kind of it for the way that I do fermenting. I try to keep it all really, really simple. I don't try to complicate anything. I just get the concept of something, and many times I'll just come up with my own way, because it's not cutting corners. It's like, that is unnecessary. What a wasted step. And then I just focus on what do I need to do to get that final end product, which is why I started this whole process in the first place. What's the easiest thing? What can I eliminate that's unnecessary? It's got handed down to somebody. They just didn't know it was unnecessary because they just followed that bouncing ball. I follow no bouncing balls. I do what makes most sense. So and that's kind of it for fermenting. And so these will set. So this is about 2 days old. The green beans. This is about 24 hours. So I will leave them in there and in the pantry in a darker room. I keep mine in the pantry, away from any light, and I leave the door open a little bit so it has it can keep room temperature, because you don't want it cold in there and you don't want it hot. You want around 70, 80. Just kind of keep it right around there so you can get a nice fermentation going on. Right? So when you put it in the fridge, what's going to happen is that fermentation is going to pretty much come to a dead still. That 30-something, 38 degrees, yeah, it pretty much stops fermenting. If it does ferment, it goes such a snail's pace that I wouldn't worry about it. But still, if you put it in the fridge, when you put these in the fridge and you still have a loose lid because you're not sure if it's done fermenting, you really want to get a container and put it in it. Otherwise, you'll have some liquid all in your refrigerator. How do I know that? Well, just say I'm experienced, right? So there you go. Easy peasy. It's so easy. And so if we're gardeners, as the things ripen, we can get a system going that we can put them in the jars fresh. The fresher the better, right? Now, there's no blanching on this. What I do is called a quick freeze. So I will take, if I'm going to do a quick freeze on my snow peas, I don't want to ferment all my snow peas. I want to store them for the winter. Doing a quick freeze, I will blanch them for about a minute in some boiling water, and then I'll have usually a big bowl, and I'll have ice in there. And I'll let them stay up there in that ice water for about 5 minutes so they can stop cooking. And then pat them dry, and then put them on big sheets and put them in my flat freezer for a quick freeze, and then put them in a container similar to this one. But they're white, because what I do is I put all my meat kind of products, anything that has to do anything with meats, goes in these black containers for long-term storage. And anything which is usually for my dog, and then anything that has to do with anything that's not animal products goes into my white containers. That way I know right away, I need to get something for my dog. I'm gonna grab some of those black ones and see what's in there. But if I want something for me, vegetables, fruits, whatever, I know it's the white ones. And see, that's very simple to ferment things. I recommend you get a degree in quantum mechanics, at least physics. Yeah, so pretty simple stuff. And of course, if we're not sure of something, we all have access to the World Library. I recommend you don't go to a site. Of course, there's sites that we trust, and stuff like that. But sometimes that's just passed on information. We're coming up with better ways of doing things than we ever have before in human history. And AI is playing a big part of that. And so it's best to go to AI World Library and see what the latest recommendation is. What we thought was safe yesterday, we're realizing, oh my gosh, I've been taking that all my life. No wonder I'm on 30 medications. So we want to keep up to date, right? Stay with the times. Stay with the modern stuff. And that's it. So please subscribe, thumbs up, ring the bell, leave a comment, click the like. And if you have any questions, leave a comment in the comment section, and I will respond. And you have a good day and a good life.